Last night when I arrived in Big Bend National Park, the weather circumstances were so unusual that I decided to not set up my tent. It was going to get extremely windy as per the forecast, both on my navigation system and also on my smart device. In both cases, the situation was correct, the forecast was correct, and not having set up my tent was a great idea. You can see the haze, that's just like dust in the atmosphere. You can see at the end of the mountain range, it's hard to see the mountains. There is dust going through the air at this point in time. This was before my early morning hike where I wanted to get in a good amount of distance, and I chose this day because the temperatures were going to be lower than expected. And at the same time, some real unusual things were happening once again. But I knew that I was going the right way. I continued to be pointed in the right direction. I was paying attention to the signs. Can you see the signs? There are a lot of different things that happen that quote unquote show me the way or show me that I'm on the correct path. For an example, I'm into wildlife, and so a lot of times just following wildlife will put me in the path of whatever it is that I seek. I would continue to follow these ravens for quite some time, where one would stay in front and one would stay flanking us. And at a certain point in time, I was given an indication that I should look up and look over to wherever the raven was peeling off to. Does anyone else feel like any circumstance that presents itself to us is an opportunity to possibly receive some good insight? The good news, as it were, as some people put it. Have you ever been excited to receive the good news? The good news was that these cattle were enjoying their day. The bad news is a lot of the vegetation is dry, as you can see here. The wind speed continued to increase as we approached our starting point. Right away, we passed this amazing formation. The ferocity of the wind speed increased. I could see vortexes forming in the dust that was in the valley in front of me where I was headed. Suddenly, there was a formation that I was passing by. You'll see it here. I ended up having to return quickly to this formation to take cover from some of that wind. The windstorm got so violent that I seriously questioned whether or not I was going to finish this one. As you can tell, it's extremely windy. That dust pelted my eyes. Had to get out of there and find a taller shelter. The wind is still pretty fierce. For a while I couldn't even see my destination because the wind is being channeled all in that area, and it's obscuring the horizon. So thankfully it's cleared up enough to where I can see my destination. It's not quite time to go yet. I'm somehow fortunate enough to be in just the right spot where the brunt of the wind is not hitting me anymore, but wow, it's been challenging so far. I saw a super shiny object in the distance, and that's where I headed. Sometimes I do my hikes that way, where I basically move from point to point, and I feel like I'm being shown the way to go because I end up where I decided to, but without having the extreme struggles of going through all the washes in an unpleasant way. Plus, I get to see some of the most impressive stuff along the way. Like that ocotillo had a bloom, and if you look at these ocotillo, pretty much none of the ocotillo that I saw throughout the park had a bloom, but we found the one that did have a bloom. So by this point in time, I'm pretty far from the highway, or I guess the park road, I should say, and I'm looking at things that catch my eye. Like, do you see this root system on this vegetation? Some vegetation also grows pipelines to get to its source of water. Before long, I came across this unusual path. It seemed like a horse path, and it seemed like horses had been on here pretty regularly and frequently, for that matter. Check out these dust devils. It appeared like these twisters were going back and forth guarding the destination that I was headed to for the entire day. I finally made it through to the wide wash that would lead me the rest of the way, and I found these. Some early bluebonnets, or maybe some regular time bluebonnets, but I haven't seen bluebonnets on this trip or my prior trip recently, not in the same ways that I'd seen them in years past. So imagine these little tough flowers are still persevering here in the dry wash in spite of all of the wind and cold and unusual circumstances that we were faced with here in Texas not too long ago. I feel like coming out here has summoned something, and finding some interesting things like this. No doubt others have taken shelter here as well. This was the only bird that I saw in today's 8.8 mile walk. If you look closely, those two black peaks in the frame are the place that we just returned from. And there you have the dirt devils going back and forth. For a while it was just a wall of dirt blowing through the whole area. The entire wash was just blowing dirt. More and more frequently, I'm finding that I'm not finding a whole lot of signs of active life. I'm finding a lot of signs of things from the past and even from the more recent present, and our one-time use is evident right alongside our historic trash. After this walk, I would end up having a light, all-natural meal, and then I would put together this video right from the place where I was parked, because the weather was so pleasant today that I could just sit in a still place with my windows open. Unfortunately, there weren't a whole lot of bugs or animals that would be joining us today, but again, the weather was pleasant for our walk. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for subscribing. Until next time, peace, love, and all that old school stuff.